Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and we have members from Lazy Gaming Guys and the Ronin Console this week as your other hosts. First one here is Scott. Welcome on, Scott.
Thanks. Always glad to be here. It's been a little bit, but good to be back.
Good to have you back. And also Sam. Welcome on, Sam.
Thank you. I'm back like Arnold Schwarzenegger in so many beloved films.
He is beloved, and I will always welcome an Arnold Schwarzenegger return and the Sam return, and the return to our broke head on the other side. But if this is your very first episode of the show, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we end up with the broke head block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Scott, Sam, and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 551. So there's some more trouble at GameStop. Mason and I talked about some of the employee treatment that happened last week. Well, this week, PS5s are more readily available at great retailers like Target, but it's also led to a spike in robberies at GameStop. Polygon reported that nearly 30 GameStops were robbed in the last few months, according to local news reports. And the head of GameStop loss prevention, Alan Fagergren, has offered $5,000 for any tips that lead to the arrest of these individuals. So this is GameStop's solution, is they're offering $5,000 to anyone that might put a stop to these robberies.
Yeah, it's not a great look at that point. But the problem is GameStop's never really had great security.
And now they have even less employees. Like how much?
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping any robbers.
I mean, there were multiple times I've been in multiple GameStops and like all the employees will just be in the back for a few minutes or things like that. And it's just like, oh, cool. So like me and the three other people are the only people in the front and we're all, just customers.
On one hand, you almost feel bad, right? Because like it's super unfortunate, but also, there's all these reports of like bad employee treatment and stuff. But unfortunately, what's probably going to happen is this is ultimately going to lead to more employee mistreatment because this is probably going to fall on like middle management and stuff. It's a big feel bad. I don't really know what the end game solution is, but it's a bad look for GameStop for sure. It feels like one of the many, many, many nails in the coffin at this point.
I feel like the solution could be to keep PS5s, because they did this with, I think, the Wii back when I was working there. They would restrict Wiis to online only, and they wouldn't feed them to stores because they were just so short on them. They couldn't get them in stores. So they would just have them at the warehouses and they would actually bundle them. You want a Wii, then you got to get the bundle that comes with the game and the controller for this much money. And I think that might be a good solution for them, at least for that area of GameStops. Maybe not feed those PS5s into those stores. They're getting robbed anyway. They're losing that product. Leave it online, and I'm sure they have no trouble selling them there.
That way the warehouse also has more security too. Because individual GameStop has zero security. Like, there is not a security guard in a GameStop, period.
Is it relegated mostly to one area, Daniel?
Yeah, it's looking like a lot of these were in California from what I was seeing here.
All right, so...
And that place is the Wild West.
It's a matter of, to your point, they would probably just, or should probably just restrict it to the warehouses and be like, no, you're in this state, or like in California, you can get yours through GameStop's website. We'll have plenty available, but that's it. That is the only way you're getting these.
The other problem,
you all can't be trusted with this anymore.
Oh, I was just going to say that's probably the only real solution, right? Is to just not make them so available, because at some point, if they keep getting stolen and they keep restocking them to the stores, it's almost like incentivizing it. Like, oh shit, there's more for us. And some of them are probably being stolen for personal use, and some of them are probably being flipped too.
Oh, I'm sure like you steal 5, one's for you,
right,
and then 4 go on eBay.
Exactly. So it's just kind of feeding the system at that point. So I definitely agree with Daniel. I think the move is you just add them to online stock and say this item is not available for in-store pickup.
A little insight on this is there's no great loss to GameStop if they choose to not sell these at the stores, because I know the profit margin for any new product, at least when I worked there nearly 10 years, was very small. Like it was almost not worth carrying new stuff, because I think it was like 10% profit margin for the stores themselves. The bread and butter was the used product, and this was the games,
Right.
the controllers, the used systems. Then they'd be making a significant profit on it. And I know people were like, well, I know the trade-ins aren't great, the trade-in prices, and they would forget that, like Madden, every fucking year, they'd get mad at the prices. Like, I paid $60 for this. What do you mean you're giving me a quarter? And it's like, we have hundreds of copies of this. We're never going to go through these.
People never understood the whole fact of like, yes, if this is a common game that a ton of people are trading in, the value goes lower, because the fact like, yes, we have 80 copies on the shelf right there, 200 more in the back, and that's just this GameStop. You really think we want more of your crap?
I'd always
Versus,
tell them,
okay, well, that game sells within instance of being put out on the ground or on the floor. Like, yes, we will pay you premiums for that.
trade in your Madden, trade in your MLB, trade in all of those sports games, Call of Duty even, before the new one comes out. That's when you'll get your maximum value. And I'd tell them, and they'd be like, well, but then what am I going to play? Because that's the only shit they played, were the sports games, Call of Duty. That was it. And it's like, well, I mean, do you want $30 now, or do you want $1 later? I mean, that's really what you're looking at.
Yeah. And for a while, GameStop was doing the whole, like, within 4 or 5 months, you could trade it in for $30 guaranteed of release, which, I mean, for most Madden and stuff like that, that's going to be your best deal right there. Is like right at that last month, go ahead, just trade it in, because you know the next one's going to be coming out.
Absolutely. So we'll see what GameStop's solution is, if they have one. I doubt they will. This $5,000 tip thing tells me that they're going in the wrong direction on it. So it'll be fun to watch them as they continue to get more PS5s. Here we have something from Dragon Ball Super Superhero, which I know, Sam, you really enjoyed, especially. The animation director, Chikashi Kubota. I tried to say that as cringy as possible for you guys, because I know you guys are, at least Sam is like a super weeb. So he wasn't the biggest fan of the idea of switching from 2D to 3D animation for the film. At the Japan Expo SUD in France, Kubota shared that he thought it was a, quote, shame that the movie was slated to be entirely in 3D, also confirming that he only promised to be a part of the production if there was at least one full 2D sequence, which ends up being at the beginning of the film. They're in the Red Ribbon Army thing. So what do you think about that? I know, especially you, Sam, starting it off with him wanting to, being apprehensive at taking on 3D animation for something like Dragon Ball.
It's definitely, it's kind of interesting, because I think it mirrors a lot of audience members' feelings. Like, I think a lot of us were going to go see this regardless. And for people like me that went and saw it and were pleasantly surprised, it was almost like icing, because it was well written, and, you know, it felt, oddly enough, a lot like original Dragon Ball or early Z, where it's like it was a really good balance of humor and action storytelling. But I think a lot of us saw that first trailer and we went, oh man, I don't know. So it's kind of interesting that, like, one of the main people that is responsible for the animation that we're so, you know, enamored with was kind of on the same page. I'd be interested to see if, after seeing the film and having some time to kind of ruminate on it, if he still feels the same way, or if, like a lot of the audience that shared those feelings, he kind of came around to it after the finished product was revealed.
I know you haven't seen the film, Scott, but from the bits that you have seen online, has had any of that taken you aback? And would you want to see all the movies moving forward be done in this way?
Oh God, no, I don't. I don't want to see this shit again. Like, I really don't care for the 3D animation stuff. Like, I don't like it. The trailers I've seen and stuff, I don't think are good. I'll still watch the movie at some point just to be like, yep, I've seen like all the Dragon Ball Z movies. But no, I would much rather than go back to 2D animation. I don't think the 3D is good. It's gotten a lot better than Battle of the Gods. Holy shit. That was like some PS2 level stuff. But I don't think it's good. I know a few different anime movies have done this.
I wouldn't
now, like Trigun, with, if you watch Ronin Council, is also doing this. I just don't care for it. Like, it's not garbage looking, but it's also off-putting to me. I just don't like it. I'd rather see the more traditional 2D animation.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say I necessarily would prefer to see all of them like this, but after seeing it, I'm also like, I'm not going to stop seeing them if they are. They did a good enough job. And once you kind of got used to it, you and I were kind of talking about this channel. It is a little jarring when you see the first scene and you're like, oh, okay. But I guess, I don't know if it's your eyes adjusting or you just kind of like get into the groove of the way it's animated. After a while, you stop thinking about it so much. So, like, I wouldn't be like, oh man, forget the 2D animation and just do this by any means, because I still love that. When I saw the opening sequence that he's talking about where it is 2D animation, I was like, man, this looks so good. But I also, they did a good enough job to where if they decided, you know, for theatrical releases, we're going to keep integrating this from now on, I would still watch them.
I was with you on it too. I would not want the future movies to be like this. That being said, I would still watch them. I know there were some sequences in Dragon Ball Broly that were in 3D. There were some in 2D. So they kind of mixed that stuff up. And it was jarring for me when they did switch to 3D. And I'm not talking about like the beams. Like that stuff looked fine. I didn't mind it. But it's when the characters fully went 3D, like when they went into that weird dimension after they overpowered, punched themselves in Broly, that I was like, okay, this looks rough. And then when they got back to 2D animation, I'm like, all right, this looks better again. I will give them credit in this, in that they tried to, in doing this 3D animation, they tried to make it look like the world of Dragon Ball, the Akira Toriyama designs. They tried to make it look somewhat 2D, if that makes any sense, without trying to do something like Rugrats, where when they do them in 3D, they actually make them three-dimensional. So I'm glad that they at least tried to keep it in that same look, even though you know that it's moving at a slower frame rate, if that makes any sense, than what would be 2D. For some reason, it's not as smooth when they do it in 3D.
Yeah, agreed. Like it's not my preferred thing, but I think, you know, it's perfectly serviceable, and you know, I still had a blast with the movie, so I'm not going to say if they keep doing this, I'm done with Dragon Ball releases.
That's the best description of Dragon Ball in its entirety. Serviceable.
Yeah.
Like, is it great? Nah, but it's serviceable.
Before we move on from this topic, are there any anime that you watch that are fully 3D that you are okay with, that you're okay with as opposed to 2D?
I will never prefer it over 2D, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it will never be better, in my opinion. But there are movies that I'm like, it's a good movie despite it being in 3D. Like Lupin the Third, the First is a very good movie, but I would have much preferred it being in 2D. I just think they did decent with the 3D.
You like that Captain Harlock that's in 3D a lot.
That one is absolutely gorgeous, but I also think that it would have been absolutely gorgeous in 2D as well. So it's one of those situations where, no, I will never prefer the 3D animation over the 2D.
How about you, Sam?
There's a couple. It's always series that like have always been 3D, and even then, I am kind of curmudgeon-y about it. I'm always like, oh, does it have to look like this? But there's a pretty good fighting anime on Netflix called Kengan Asura that's 3D animated, and I really enjoy that. I think they actually do a good job with like the lighting and stuff to where it feels very visceral. So I like that one quite a bit. And there's been some other ones, usually movies. I don't mind it quite as much, just because, you know, you have like the 2 hours or however long to kind of adjust to how it looks. So it's not my favorite thing in the world. And I think part of that has to do with just me getting older and kind of getting that point where I want things to look the way that I'm used to them looking, but I don't hate it. Like there's series, like I said, that are in 3D and I still really enjoy them.
Well, even I have an answer. The guy that watches anime the least out of the three of us here. And mine is Netflix's Godzilla trilogy that are actually my favorite Godzilla films. And that was the first project that I watched that I'm like, okay, they can do 3D anime pretty good. And that was years ago. So it might look rough by today's standards as far as 3D.
When did those come out?
Oh man, that must have been like 2016, 17,
early
6
2010s, maybe
maybe, yeah, it might be even
2010s.
earlier than that. Yeah, you're right, Scott.
I remember them coming out and me actually thinking they looked cool, and then I just never got around to watching them.
They're excellent, Sam. If you get a chance, like I've been harping on Millennial Mike to watch those so that we can do like a podcast about all three films. And I haven't reminded him about it, but they are still the best Godzilla films I've seen. Better than King of the Monsters, better than Final Wars, like that Netflix trilogy.
Oh wow, okay.
It's unexpected. It's very philosophical. It's a little bit nihilistic. It's not a traditional Godzilla where you're going to have giant monsters fighting each other. It's very much about the human experience and the monster experience and how they can live together in this far future, which you don't see often with Godzilla films, where they explore humanity in the far future trying to live with Godzilla.
Definitely check them out. That way we can all kind of have a discussion about them. That sounds super fun. Are they still on Netflix?
Yeah, they're all on Netflix because they're branded as a Netflix project, so they won't be leaving there. In Japan, they came out in theaters and on Blu-ray, but here in the States, it's only on Netflix.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely have to check those out.
And we are getting some more out of Dragon Ball. I don't know if either of you have already seen this crossover. I believe it's aired in Japan. I don't know. But Toei Animation has shared the English dub preview for the Dragon Ball One Piece crossover that will be arriving on Toonami on March 4th. One Piece being another host's on here, Bobby's favorite thing in the world right now. So did you guys get a chance to either check out the original crossover of this or see this original English dub that's coming out?
I mean, I didn't watch the original one. Should also be noted that it's a 3-way crossover.
Oh, really?
One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, and Toriko.
What's Toriko?
It's a unique take on a cooking anime.
All right.
It's if you had to hunt down the ingredients in this giant fantasy world and kill it, and then know specific ways how to cook them.
Gotcha.
It's a very interesting series.
Should have been Food Wars.
It's like Food Wars, except more if you took Dragon Ball Z and mixed it with Food Wars. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this special, I'm surprised they're finally dubbing it, considering it's about 10 years old at this point.
Jesus.
So, I mean, Toriko's been done and over for, I want to say 6 years, 7 years now. So it's quite an old special. So it's nice that it's coming out to the US now. It's just, I wonder what held it up for so long, considering two of the properties are very big properties.
Since it's so old, I'm guessing there's no Super Saiyan God forms or anything like that in this?
No.
Gotcha.
Like, no, nowhere near it. Like, it's pretty basic. And it's all just a non-canon side story for, I think, 2 episodes.
All right. So
Or
it's
an
just a little
episode,
project.
but yeah, it's a neat little collaboration project because the mangakas were all friends. So they did some stuff or crossover mangas together. And then this was crossover. So it's cool. Glad to see it finally coming to the West. Just amazed it took so long, but
Yeah, I have not seen it. I recently have been halfway attempting to get through One Piece because my coworkers won't shut up.
just read it. Don't watch it.
I read it back when I was a kid, like when I would buy Shonen Jump magazine, and like it's fine where the crossover happens, and I was like, yeah, I'm skipping that. So I haven't watched it. It's cool that it's here. Like, I think crossovers are a lot of fun because a lot of, manga fans obviously do read, just like American comic book fans, they read multiple titles and stuff. So I think it's cool that there's an opportunity for that because it doesn't happen very often because, manga is so... Everything is meant to be an isolated story. There's typically not any interaction between various mangas unless it's by the same writer usually. But it's cool, and I know there are definitely fans of the English dub of One Piece. So you get to hear a different version of Luffy screaming. So,
and I think for a lot of us too,
fun.
where we grew up with I know, Scott, you've talked about this, of being used to the English voice actors, even though you're not a fan of English dubs, there's some stuff that you just grew up with and you're now like ingrained in that world of like, okay, well, Dragon Ball, I always got to watch in English. So I know that'll catch at least those people that watch these old anime growing up and they're like, well, yeah, this is kind of the way I gotta see it, even if you've seen the Japanese dub already.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be those animes like Dragon Ball and stuff like that, or even like Yu Hakusho. For me, the English dub is what I hear when I hear the character voices. Pretty much almost anything on Toonami back in the day.
Mhm.
Like that's just, I mean, that's what I grew up with. So some of those, I will watch the dubs like over the things, and some of them the dubs were actually very accurate. For instance, Rurouni Kenshin. Surprisingly, I watched it subbed and dubbed recently, and it was
And I mean, like,
word for word. Like it was almost a direct translation minus a few specific words or phrases that got changed to be, more in line with what an American audience would understand. But I'm like, wow, that is surprising.
yeah, and I mean, back in the day too, like, unless you were going to stores that sold bootlegs, like for a lot of us, that was the only way we would get exposed to an anime was if it came on Toonami. And then at that point, it was absolutely because it got dubbed. So, and I think a lot of there were definitely bad ones back then too, but I think a lot of the ones that hit mainstream TV, Toonami especially, they're dubbed with like a certain amount of care. Like it's not haphazardly at all. The era of Steve Bloom was a pretty good era for voice acting.
Yeah, Cowboy Bebop's another one that I'm like, I can't
Mhm.
like whenever I hear anything, like it's the English dub I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Well, that for me also includes Pokemon, the anime, even though they have different voice actors today. I got to watch it in English and hear the voices somewhat similar to what I grew up with. And we did just have Pokemon Day, which in celebration of that, Netflix announced last week that Pokemon Concierge is going to be releasing. It's an ambitious stop motion project produced by critically acclaimed Dwarf Studios. So this collaborative production between Netflix and the Pokemon Company is set at a Pokemon resort where Pokemon visit as guests. So it looks like the Pokemon Company is starting to get a little bit more creative with some of the anime and products that they put together in the future.
I'm gonna watch this, man. I think I was talking to you about this a little bit, Daniel, but saying that I was thinking about it, but I'm on anime again, and I think part of it is my coworkers all play Pokemon and stuff, and I deal with Pokemon a lot at my job, and I've been loving it. And this just sounds super cute and fun, so I'm pretty hype.
The teaser itself, I love that. Like Pokemon just seems like even from the TCG when they would do little clay artworks in the TCG, it lends itself so well to that medium. So seeing an entire project of that, like I'm really excited for it. Scott, I know
Yeah.
you're not a Netflix guy, but are you going to find a way to check this out?
Nah, I'm good. Nothing against it. I'm just not a huge stop motion fan. I think it's impressive as hell. Like the process of it and how to and how they make it. But I just don't care to actually watch stop motion films. Something about it just doesn't click with me.
Well, I'm personally hoping that
But
we get a Bulbasaur stop motion somewhere in there in the little resort.
and then you can try and buy the figure, the actual one used on there.
Are there any
Your Bulbasaur
Pokemon?
collection won't be complete.
Yeah, you're right. Sam, are there any Pokemon that you hope to see in this special project?
Oh, Haunter for sure.
Oh, yes,
Haunter
that'd be cool.
and Psyduck are my two favorites, so I'd really like to see. I think they would both look super cool in stop motion.
I think Psyduck was in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
Ooh,
I think the only
nice.
Pokemon they showed.
Yeah.
But yeah, any of the ghost types really, but Haunter's my favorite, so I think it'd be super cool to see him as stop motion.
Well, I wasn't able to find the release date for this project, but maybe they announced it super early because of Pokemon Day, just to get more stuff on there for that direct or whatever you want to call it, for that celebration. So we're probably still at least a year away from seeing that release. But we did get this week the teaser to Disney's Haunted Mansion trailer.
Other more powerful entities may come through.
Not on our watch.
Well, what are you gonna do? Seriously.
They're already dead.
You're gonna be deader.
So this one is set to release this year. And I know I've shared on here before that although I'm not big on a lot of the Disney movies, Jared Leto's in this as the Hatbox Ghost. So I'm like, oh shit, Jared Leto's in this. I'm fucking in. I don't care. So what'd you guys think of this teaser?
I loved it. Like, I watched it and I was just like, done. I will be at theaters, maybe opening weekend, maybe opening day if I can, to watch this thing. You give me like Owen Wilson and all these things. Like, it looked so good. I don't know. I'm a huge Haunted Mansion fan. Like, it's my favorite attraction. Love it. And I love that they kept the creepy, spooky atmosphere, but also a bunch of the jokes. Like, it's not just a straight comedy, but it's also not a horror movie either, which I feel it works great. There's a lot of references to the actual ride in it. You've got like a huge all-star cast in this thing.
Mhm.
Like, I'd hate to see how much it cost just to hire all these people, but I think it looks good. Like, honestly, it looked really good to me, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited as well. The cast is just so stacked. I don't see it being bad by any means. Like, I think the worst this movie can do is be like decent, and even then I think it's probably going to be really good. I'm actually looking forward to taking my mom to see this since she worked on the Haunted Mansion in the 70s, and I think she'll like it a lot because there's so many high profile talented actors in it. So that's my plan, is to take my parents.
Yeah, that's a good
They'll be
plan.
into it.
I got to tell you, I watched the trailer and there were some moments that I liked. When you see the bride, that's a big part of the ride. I didn't like the trailer itself. I was very underwhelmed by it, but I was already sold on it regardless because, like Scott, I like the Haunted Mansion ride a lot, and Jared Leto's in it. Like, that's a big get for me. So while I was like, okay, that trailer wasn't great, I don't know. Like, it just didn't show a lot, but I was sold on it. I didn't need to see this trailer, whether it was a good or bad trailer for me. So, I mean, that's really all I have to share on it. I didn't see the Hatbox Ghost unless I missed him. Did you guys see him?
There was a teaser of him, yeah.
Like the back of him? Was that him?
I didn't catch it.
He caught the head or whatever, and like you saw the little thing, the little box where he keeps the hat or his head.
Gotcha.
Like, you did see that in the teaser. It was for like a split second, but
What's the release date on this?
July 28th, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so
'Cause
it'll
they
be out
moved it
this
up.
summer. And I still got to finish the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion. Like, I did start it like 2 months
It's
back,
not
and
the
I just
worst
haven't finished
thing.
it. It was cool.
But it's not
like, it was
great.
fine.
Like,
Yeah,
I feel like they just should have done more with Eddie Murphy, because you had a great comedic / also can be serious actor,
Mhm.
and you really, I don't think, used him well. And I think that was the problem.
I thought the special effects were pretty good for the time. Seeing the mummies wake up and seeing the ghosts, like, I thought that was all fine, and there were enough references to the ride that I'm like, yeah, this is solid for being someone who enjoys the ride. I think if you've never been on Haunted Mansion or seen the ride, you probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. And I know there's probably some Easter eggs in this new one that are like, okay, I remember that, the stretching room, all of that stuff is probably in there, and stuff that we'll enjoy. But I think it's just a product of us being in Florida. We've been on it. We're so exposed to the different theme parks here. So we're going to be a little bit more excited for some of this stuff, even though, like, for me, if I hadn't been on Haunted Mansion, I'd be like, I'm not seeing this, even with Jared Leto. But now I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm watching it. I'm in.
And we've still got time too. It could just be that they were kind of like not getting to, I guess, pun intended, give up the ghost with the whole trailer. Because, I feel like recently Disney's been a little more guarded as far as Disney proper. MCU doesn't count, but like with how much they give away in trailers, because I think people are getting a little put off by it, for lack of a better term, because you feel like you go and you're like, oh, I saw the best parts of the movie in the trailer.
Yeah, and that does happen with a lot of movies, and that kind of goes back to, though, where, like, I remember that was a big thing with BVS, like when they showed Doomsday in the trailer. And I remember, and I'll still say that on here when a new trailer comes out. And I know, Scott, you agree with me on this one, where if I'm already sold on it, it's on me if I keep watching trailers. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like, why would I need to watch another trailer if I'm already gonna give them my money? That trailer is to convince the person that's like, oh shit, Doomsday is in this movie. I guess I'll go see it.
Right.
Yeah. that's the whole thing. Like, I typically will watch maybe the first trailer, and then it's like, oh, I'm good. That's like, I don't need to watch anything else until it comes out because you've got my money. You've already captured me.
Like a Pokemon.
Like a Pokemon.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I won't be seeing. I mean, maybe I'll check out the next trailer, but it won't matter. And if I do and something gets spoiled again, it's on me.
Yeah.
But as always, since it is a very interesting time for Warner Brothers Discovery, it's no exception that we have another week of news for Warner Brothers, as during a desperate earnings call, WBD has announced Mortal Kombat 12 releasing this year. I think they ended up losing $2.1 billion this quarter, so they very much like Disney. Disney did the same thing. They lost a shit ton of subscribers and cash, so they started announcing a bunch of projects. It's very common with earnings call with those just to keep the stockholders in. So Warner Brothers Discovery did the same thing. Mortal Kombat 12 got announced to release this year. Back in September, Johnny Cage's voice actor Andrew Bowen, he teased the sequel by posting a video of him standing in the Warner Brothers studio lot. And NetherRealm creative director Ed Boon told IGN the team was, quote, working on another game, end quote, but couldn't share exactly what it was at that time. A lot of people thought for sure it was going to be Injustice 3. Turns out it's Mortal Kombat 12, which is always a solid seller for them. And that's not a whole lot you can say with Warner Brothers Discovery these days, especially with how some of these video games have been doing lately.
They definitely took the safe bet by doing Mortal Kombat 12. Like, it's going to sell. Guaranteed 100% of the time. It's going to sell. It's going to sell well. I look forward to playing it in 3 years when the Game of the Year edition's out for $20 with all the DLC. I think it'll be a fun time then. But yeah, it's a guaranteed sell. There's a bunch of extra DLC that's always a guaranteed sell because it's like, oh, look, Ninja Turtles are in there, or you can play as like Freddy Krueger and stuff.
Here's Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. Like, boom. There, you just got the whole gay community in there.
That's true. All the furries.
Yeah. So it's one of the safest bets they could do as a video game for with their IPs. Injustice 3 would have been much nicer for me, but like, this is a much safer bet.
Are you an MK guy, Sam?
I am. I'm an MK guy and an Injustice guy. I'm 30 years old and I still enjoy poning my friends in Mortal Kombat, so I probably won't pick it up day one. I don't usually do it with fighting games because, I gotta give my friends a handicap and let them play it for a few weeks so they can, prepare. But no, I do usually like to pick it up once the first DLC drops, to be honest, because I like having a pretty decent roster of characters. But I'm excited. I was trying to think, other than those two games, though, like what other games does WB have in the stable that has really been performing well that you could think of, Daniel?
Oh, that's been performing well. I mean, it's hard to say it these days. Right now, the Suicide Squad game by Rocksteady is getting a lot of bad press from gamers because it's
right.
A
I was going to say that game's the
Yeah.
Titanic right now.
Yeah,
which was so sad because I was so looking forward to that game until I found out about the whole always online thing, and I'm like, well,
same.
All right, I'm done. I might pick it up eventually when it goes to like $10-$20 just to play through it once, but that's it. Like, it's not getting a day one purchase from me in any way, shape, or form.
Same thing happened with that Gotham Knights game, which, Sam, did you end up getting that? Because I know you play as Nightwing in it.
I did not pick it up because I saw the frame rate issues and just the way the game runs, and I'm kind of with Scott on that one. I'll probably pick that game up when it's on Steam sale or Game Pass for $20.
Yeah, it's been going down to like 30 recently.
Yeah, that's still $10 more than I want to pay for.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's because they are only putting the deluxe edition on sale for 30.
Right.
So you're getting the extra DLC, but that way they don't have to lower it down to the $20 range because it's not the regular version going down.
Right.
Well, I know they also have that Wonder Woman game coming out, which sounded great, which we saw very little of it, but we know that the studio behind it does solid titles, which I was like, all right, that sounds pretty cool. But now that was before the James Gunn thing. And now James Gunn's on Twitter going on about how we're going to get a bunch of video games based on his universe, and the actors that play them in the cartoons and the movies are going to voice them in the games. And those are going to be the designs you see in the game. So that's the future of DC gaming right now. Unless they decide to do Elseworlds games like Injustice 3. I don't know. But the future of DC for gaming even doesn't look very good.
I haven't
No,
enjoyed that type of thing since like the Raimi Spider-Man tie-in games, dude. Like anymore, I like the games being separate from the movies, separate from the comics, like just tell a unique story. That's like so much cooler to me now.
Yeah, I even liked because like Rocksteady did this with the Arkham series, where it's like, oh, it's a bunch in the same universe,
Right.
and then that's what like Suicide Squad and Gotham Knights were supposed to be kind of set in the same universe. And I thought that was kind of a cool concept, and Spider-Man's doing that with Insomniac. But it's like that's what I want is the video game
Right.
maybe to have their own like universe of just here, Batman's universe is Batman's universe. We're gonna keep those games together, but this is separate. Like, no, we have nothing to do with those movies. We have nothing to do with the TV shows. Those are all their own thing. And even if someone else wants to do a Batman game, it's like, well, yeah, but it's not Rocksteady's universe. So it's not the Arkham series. It's this, publisher's series. And I thought that was kind of cool. Just the video games doing their own thing.
Yeah.
It holds back the creatives quite a bit, unfortunately, by James Gunn saying you can only do them from my universe, and there's probably more restrictions, like you can't use these characters because I plan on using them over here. You can use these over here though, and make sure you don't kill off this, or this person. It's just a fucking mess.
Or you have to specifically use this character because we're going to be promoting them soon. So this will be like a little teaser or an introduction to the character. So we don't have to do an introduction in the movie. We can be like, I'll play this game. That's where they were introduced into our universe.
And that was the best when all these developers, including people from Rocksteady, were booing James Gunn for this. They're like, you're not going to top video game voice actors with Hollywood voice actors. It's not going to happen. You're going to be tied in creatively so much to when people can schedule voicing in, how these characters look, when they release based on the movie, because you got to release it near the movie or the show. So he was like, yeah, they're not, good luck. That's not going to go well.
There is only one Hollywood actor that I'd be like, all right. I mean, you give me Matt Ryan as Constantine in a Constantine game, and I will buy it. But at the same time, like, you place, if Kevin Conroy was still around, it's like, oh, you're going to replace him with
exactly
even Batfleck
or
anything like that. It's
anyone,
like, yeah, it's like, no, it's Kevin Conroy, guys. Like, you're not replacing that. I don't care what Hollywood actor it is. Like, this is Batman's animated voice. Period.
It's all got to be one vision. It's all got to connect. Everything has to connect. This is what people wanted, right? All these comic book superhero film viewers, these audiences were like, why aren't they connecting? So now you're getting super connections, even in the games. They also did announce a new series of Lord of the Rings films that take place during the Third Age, which would allow for the inclusion of characters like Gandalf and Aragorn. Amazon will continue to pay Warner Brothers Discovery for the television rights to the franchise, but now Warner Brothers Discovery is moving forward with big screen adaptation of Lord of the Rings, which I was never a big fan of. Lord of the Rings is not my thing, so I have no opinion on this, but I don't know if you guys felt one way or the other.
I'm actually a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan. Unfortunately, what's happening here for me personally is the same thing that happened to me with Star Wars, which, fun fact, when I was growing up as a kid, I was as nerdy of a Star Wars nerd as you could get, which was essentially I'd watched all the movies an infinite number of times. I could quote all of them, and I had read a bunch of the novels, and that was considered like extremely hardcore Star Wars nerd when I was in like all the way up until pretty much high school. Now it's on another level. But what happened was, we complained for so many years that, we need more Star Wars official stuff. And Disney said, I've got it for you right here. And now we're just bombarded with it. And I'm now so burnt out on Star Wars that anytime someone asks, have you watched this Star Wars thing? The answer is almost always no, and I'm probably not going to. That's now happening with Lord of the Rings. Like, I tried watching the Amazon series, and it's not even offensively bad enough for me to watch it and laugh. It's just so whatever. Like, it's, as the kids say, it's so mid. Like, there's nothing super exciting to where I'm like, oh man, I'm really invested. And it's weird because, you've seen the movies enough. Those movies are extremely prolific as far as, high fantasy movies go. And so a lot of people were introduced to that universe from those movies. And anytime you show those character or see those characters show up on screen now, you go, that doesn't fucking look like Hugo Weaving, or like that's not Ian McKellen. Why are we trying to make it look like him? It's so off. So now whenever I hear about a Lord of the Rings project, and they're getting announced constantly, there's also a Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering crossover happening.
Wow.
Yeah, and
but Magic's doing like a bunch. It's even like Doctor Who had a crossover, or is having one.
Usually it's like a secret lair. It's like some small little, here's some cards with this. This is like a full set that has like 8 billion products. Anyways, what I'm saying is it's too much Lord of the Rings. It's too much, like there's only so much Tolkien material. And unlike with, Star Wars, like Tolkien passed away a long time ago. Like the amount of material that can be made already exists. You like can't get more of it than what's already there. Whereas with Star Wars, it's arguable how much of it was ever Lucas's in the first place. And worst comes to worst, they can still ask Lucas. With this, at some point, they're just making and calling it Lord of the Rings. So it's leading. I don't think I'm the only one to a lot of like fatigue with the universe, which is really unfortunate because for a lot of people, it's really special. And this is just another thing of like Amazon has this, and now they're gonna not let you forget that they have it forever.
Yeah, I have no real opinions. I watched all 3 movies. I kind of found it boring. I tried reading The Hobbit, fell asleep. So.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan
I
of the
don't
movies
hate
either.
them, but I just was not a huge fan. So, like, I can kind of understand though how fans would be like, okay, this does need to stop. Like, we can see the writing on the wall of where this is going. If you look at DC Universe, MC Universe, Star Wars, it's like, okay, like, please just stop this while you're ahead.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if they're able to make up as much money as they did with the Hobbit trilogy, because even back then they did another set of 3 movies, and who knows what they'll move forward with on this set. And we'll probably get that first film, I'm guessing, in 5 or 6 years, especially if Warner Brothers Discovery wants to move forward and place their bets on this to try to build a profit before they sell it off to Universal. But we did get some DC news, as it was announced by the publisher that the manga series, which you guys talked about on the Ronin console, the manga series that featured Batman, Superman, and the Joker will finally hit the West later this year. So the titles of these 3 are Joker, One Operation Joker, Batman Justice Buster, and Superman vs. Meshi. So they're slated to receive print collections at some point this year. The manga will also be made first available on the DC Universe Infinite platform. Have either of you read the 3 original mangas, and are you excited for this release?
So I've read most of Joker, One Operation Joker, because that is the only one that has any type of English translation online, fan translation. The other 2 have nothing. And it's fun. I mean, it's interesting, like watching the main premise for any fans on here is that the Joker and Batman are fighting. The Joker kind of adjusts his movement a bit to get in a better position, and Batman falls into a vat of chemicals at the Ace Chemical Factory that turned Joker into the Joker, but instead Batman turns into a baby. And now Joker has to raise Batman as a baby in order to become Batman so that he can then keep going against him. So he's trying to raise him with a moral compass so that he'll become Batman and then go against him again.
James Gunn's like, this sounds great.
Yeah.
Can you just keep him as a baby?
Yeah. And then the world in general is dealing with the fact of like billionaire Bruce Wayne just vanished. Where do you go? And, all the people that knew the secret are trying to figure out like what the hell happened to him and things like that. So it's very interesting, but it's mostly a comedy series, as you can tell by the ridiculous premise.
I have not read it. I just listened to what Scott had to say about it. I'm not usually super crazy about reading manga online for the most part, especially some fan translations are really good, but they're hit or miss for me. So I haven't checked it out yet.
I will be picking up Joker 1 Operation Joker when it does hit previews catalog. And I know in the past when I managed the comic shop, they did do a Justice League manga series. They did what was the other one? I think they did a Joker one at one point, or at least just a Batman one. And they sat on the shelves. People bought around it. They bought Attack on Titan at that point, everything that wasn't whatever. So I was like, okay, once they sold out, I didn't carry them again. And I don't know if that's going to change with these just because the plots are crazier. I think Superman vs. Messi is about him eating a ton of food or something like that. It's just so goofy that maybe it'll catch the manga series or the fans. I'd be curious to see. Plus, manga selling way more than it was back then. The Joker one, I would for sure suggest. Like, every comic shop should at least give that a try. Throw it in the manga section and see what happens. Might be the kind of thing that non-manga readers would pick up, even if it's goofy and silly or whatever. But just the premise alone would sell for that $12.99 or whatever they end up pricing it at.
Yeah, I think that one's, to your point, at least the premise alone will probably get a lot of comic readers to be like, that sounds kind of entertaining.
The world of the Marvel Universe is also going to be changing as well for the comics, as Batman Court of Owls artist Greg Capullo teased a Wolverine miniseries on his Instagram as part of his art deal with Marvel. So this is something that he and Scott Snyder have been DC exclusives for over 10 years. It's been a long time. They had a long run at Batman, and they have recently let go, both Marvel and DC let go of heavy talent, and some of them have switched. Like Brian Michael Bendis went from Marvel to DC. Who was it? Pat Gleason. He went from DC to Marvel, and I was like, damn, they lost a great artist. Marvel's got an amazing artist now. And I know he was on Spider-Man for a little bit. Well, Greg Capullo is now going to be doing some work with Marvel. I know this is something he's talked about for years at conventions. He's like, before I'm unable to draw anymore, I'd like one crack at Wolverine. He mentioned the Hulk. He's mentioned the Punisher. Scott Snyder has mentioned wanting to write some Captain America. So at the very least, it sounds like Greg Capullo will probably finish his career off at Marvel or do a couple of projects there and then move over to Image. But honestly, this might be the one artist or writer that might get me to pick up another Marvel book, because I really like Greg Capullo. He's an incredible artist, and whatever they put him on, if they let him do his thing, is going to be gorgeous.
I would definitely pick up some of his stuff with that Wolverine miniseries. Just because Greg Capullo is such a talented artist, but it also depends entirely on how much freedom they give him. Because I think that's why, at least at the convention, it sounded when me and Daniel went to a panel, that Scott Snyder kind of understood how Greg Capullo worked. Mm-hmm. So they clicked very well together. He gave him the freedom he needed, but also, wrote enough that they kind of worked in tandem versus against each other.
Hey, Sam, have you ever heard of how Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo butted heads at first when they were working on Batman?
I was actually going to ask you, is Snyder coming with him? Is that what's happening, or is it just Capullo going?
So as far as I've heard, it's just Capullo. Scott Snyder's been doing a lot of independent work.
Okay, yeah, I've seen him whenever I go to pick up my books on the indie wall quite a bit. So, but no, what's the story with how they butted heads at first?
So Scott was giving him the scripts, and he was very detailed with the scripts of on this panel, make sure you do this and this, have this many people, have this guy doing this. He would send them photo references for panels and crowds and characters. And Capullo's like, that's not how I work. And he told Scott, I'm not going to work through your references. And they kind of clashed a bit, because Greg's like, I just need to know the words, the story, and then I'll work the rest. A little bit closer to the Marvel method a little bit. And Scott's like, no, well, that's not how I work either. So he kept sending him reference material, and eventually Greg Capullo was like, I'm just ignoring that shit, and wouldn't open the files or anything. And Scott Snyder was like, oh, that's great. That's exactly what I was thinking. And Greg Capullo was like, okay, I never looked at the pictures though. So Scott eventually learned to back off from it and kind of let him just send him the script and let Greg work.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, obviously it worked for them, because I think they have one of the best and most critically and audience adored Batman runs of all time. There's been plenty of great Batman runs, but usually you remember either the artist or the writer on a lot of really good Batman runs, like because you feel like one of them is kind of what made it great. Whereas with Snyder and Capullo, it was the perfect marriage. Like everyone, I think even probably that's why I asked, because when you think of one of those guys, you think of the other one because they just work so harmoniously together. As far as it seems like the perfect pairing. Like the writing matches the artistry so much.
Do either of you guys have a favorite run or a favorite moment, I should say, from their Batman run or from Dark Knight's Metal that you're like, you kind of think about or that you relate that was like, oh, that moment was amazing. That was a great panel. That was a great page or anything like that come to mind when you think of their work on the New 52?
For me, it's when Bruce is in the tunnel and the cowl's torn up and you see him with like the beady, like bloodied red eye after he's just been run ragged for so long. That's like, that panel always stands out to me. That and the cover, I think it's the following issue actually, where he mutated face. You know what I'm talking about? Where it looks like a rabbit or a rodent almost.
Oh, it looks like an owl bursting out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
People get that tattooed all the time.
I'm not shocked, but yeah, those two of my favorites, and then also from Zero Year when you see Gotham for the first time, and it's just like it's literally just a fucking wasteland. That's also one of my favorites.
How about you, Scott?
Yeah, like I've only really truly read Court of Owls, and then what was that sequel series? It was like I think a DC Black label. They came out years later.
That Greg Capullo also worked on?
Yeah.
Oh, Last Night on Earth. Yes.
Yes. So those are the only two I've really read. But I do really enjoy like when he was having to drink all the stuff, and then the panel you had the rotating essentially panel with
Oh yeah,
the text and everything else. I know that a lot of people hate that, but I don't know. It was one of those things that I thought was a gimmick that worked very well in the situation.
I love the story behind that because Batman's being poisoned and you're losing your mind along with Batman, so you're forced to rotate the panel. And editorial fought Greg Capullo hard on it, and Snyder. They were like, people are going to get confused. They're not going to get it. No, we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And they're like, fine. And they did it. And when they did, apparently a bunch of readers wrote in and complained to DC, like, these were all misprinted. And they're like, oh, I guess editorial was right. People are idiots.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love that. I enjoyed the concept behind it, and I think it worked for what it was, even if other people were kind of dumb.
What about
that's
you?
one of the biggest memories.
I really like, obviously, the Starro moment from Dark Knight's Metal with little Jarro and how he hugs
Funny.
Batman and he's like, Dad, and he rescues him. Like, that's a great moment. But I
forgot that's where Jarro was from.
Yeah, from Dark Knight's Metal. And Last Night on Earth had a good team up with the Joker and Batman. Like it has an oddly really happy ending, which I wasn't expecting. But the one moment I always think back on is, and I was thinking of it too, when Leo and I were sitting down, I showed him Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond, and he really liked it. And I was thinking about how Damian's first interaction, because Terry the whole time, he's like, what? He's just a clown guy. What's the big deal? And Batman's like, I want you to quit being Batman. You're done being Batman. All these other villains we've been fighting up to this point, it's all been fun and games. But when the Joker comes back, I don't want to fucking lose anyone. We're done playing Batman. It's over. And Terry's like, what the fuck? And that made me think of Damian, because the first time he goes up against the Joker is in Death of the Family. And that's where he's also very similar to Terry McGinnis. He's like, I don't care about a clown. Like, it's just a guy. He doesn't have any powers and he doesn't understand the danger that the Joker brings. And even in the moment when they think their faces got cut off and they're served on plates in front of them, and they're all like, holy shit. Damian, when he gets unwrapped, he goes, tell me, how bad is it, Father? I can take it. And he gives him a hug, and that's when you realize none of their faces were cut off. Even in that moment, Damian's like, fuck this guy. I'm going to go fucking kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also another favorite of mine. It's really early on when you see Bruce at the gala with all the Robins, and they each have like their own little motif that shows you like their different personalities in their their like formal attire. I thought that was really cool too.
So many good moments. It makes me want to go back and pull out these trade paperbacks. I have the original issues, but I anything I love and adore and I want to reread, I buy as a trade, and I've got them. I'm looking at them right now. I'm probably going to pull those out this weekend and flip through them. Very exciting times, though. Good on Greg and good on Wolverine fans, because they're in for a treat if they've never read anything by Greg. And that does wrap it up for our news for the week. We do have our Patreon comment from Adrian, who referenced last week's episode by saying, quote, I hope on next week's show you talk about Pedogun's reveal that Zachary Levi was originally up for Star-Lord and that he recommended Levi to Safran for the role of Shazam. Yeah, I didn't put it in the show notes, but basically the reason why we have Zachary Levi as Shazam today is because of James Gunn. Like, that wasn't the original pick for the original plans. I know they planned on doing a Shazam movie in the Snyderverse, but after he got fired, they moved forward. Jeff Johns wrote that Shazam, that first film, and Zachary Levi ended up getting cast. So for better or for worse, if you ended up liking Zachary Levi or not, I think even if you go back and listen to our review of Shazam, my biggest problem still is that Zachary Levi plays this as like a 5-year-old, whereas the kid that plays Billy Batson is playing it like a kid his age. And for some reason, Zachary Levi went even more juvenile. It's just to be like, look, I'm a kid in an adult body. It's like, you're not trying to act like Billy Batson. You're someone else completely. It was really bizarre. So I'm not a fan of that. And I didn't really like his process with that. Whether it was a miscommunication between the two, I don't know. But there you go. Did you guys care for Zachary Levi Shazam? Did you like that first one?
I liked it okay. It didn't blow me away. Didn't hate it. It was just an okay movie. It was one that I saw and then that was it. Like, you know, yeah. I don't own it. I don't plan to buy it. I didn't think I wasted my money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like an MCU movie. See it once and kind of forget about it.
Actually, I find it incredibly similar to an MCU movie in that it's digestible. It's not awful, but it's not special either. I do feel kind of bad because actually kind of what you were saying, Daniel, I thought the kid was actually really good for the most part. And I just kind of felt bad because I felt like he was acting better than the movie he was cast in.
Yeah, he really gave it his all, especially that the best moments were that stuff between him and his birth mother.
Right.
It was unexpected for me. It was like, holy shit, they went really dark with this.
No, that was actually some of the better parts of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a shame. Just continuing here on Adrian's comment here. He did say also, we're discovering how bad the DC Jokerverse really is. Snyder wasn't kidding about going down the rabbit hole once the Snyder cut his scene. Yeah, we're definitely discovering a lot more as we continue. Pedogun really went out there to promote the Flush trailer. If the film supposedly has nothing to do with him, why promote it? Oh, that's right. It erases the Snyderverse. That's why he doesn't care about Shazam or Aquaman 2. I want Warner Brothers Discovery to crumble already, end quote. And it's happening, man. You're seeing it. I actually saw a funny thing. I don't know if you guys have a take on this. I just saw a tweet by Igor, longtime member of the Snyder Cut movement. And he was like, it doesn't make sense that Gunn would release a movie, The Suicide Squad. It flops, doesn't do well. And Warner Brothers Discovery promotes him to the head of DC Studios. So he has this theory that he's a fall guy for the whole thing to eventually be sold off to Comcast. Almost as if Zaslav might, in a way, have some kind of like, let's make this really cheap for Universal Comcast so that we can give them all these properties, almost as if he's been working for Comcast behind the scenes in a way. So I thought that was an interesting kind of theory where Gunn might be, it does feel like he's being set up as a fall guy because there's no way there's any success to any of these films.
Yeah, I don't know how well any of these are going to do. I mean, considering, to your point, his last, 2 properties have not done well with the Suicide Squad, and didn't he do Peacemaker?
Yeah, which supposedly did great in views, but that's no one really knows because Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't release the numbers.
So it's like they're not really that great. So it's very I don't see his other movies coming out doing that great either. Like I see it as very much they might do okay, but they're not going to do big numbers. Could be wrong, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I've actually kind of thought something similar. I feel like this is kind of a like a damned if we do, damned if we don't move by WB. Like, all right, well, we hired James Gunn. This either is automatic money because, he's known at Marvel and the Marvel heads come out, which by the way, I don't think is going to happen.
Mm.
Or if he shits the bed, then we blame it on him. So I feel like it was like, this is fine either way, because if he shits the bed, then they just sell it. And then if it does actually work, that it brings out the Marvel heads, then DC or Warner Brothers maybe starts recouping some of their losses. It definitely feels like they're not bringing him in because they think he's a quality director, though. It feels like they brought him in so that one way or another they could pass the buck off somehow.
Yeah, that's very true. And as we know now, so many people churned down this position, so they were really bottom of the barrel by the time they got to Gunn, and he was the only idiot that went, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like,
dude, we're going to see it crumble, that's for sure, and you'll hear about it here. Thanks again, Adrian, for sending that comment in on Patreon. And if you too would like to get this episode early every single week, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. Let's finish off today's episode with the Broke Block, which is the more personal side of the show, what Scott, Sam, and I have been up to since you last heard us. So let's start it off with you, Scott. What's been going on since you were last on? What have you been playing, reading? What's been making you broke?
So I've been enjoying Theatrhythm Final Fantasy Final Bar Line. That is a really fun Final Fantasy rhythm game.
I know you were dying to get off stream to play that.
The series. Yeah, like I've put in quite a few hours into it over the last week and a half. Very, very a lot of fun. Recommend it for anyone that is a fan of rhythm games and enjoys a lot of the Final Fantasy music. There's a ton of really good songs. Although they knew what they were doing when they kept some of those songs as deluxe edition versions
of course.
only.
Is the Sephiroth song a deluxe one?
No.
Okay, that's surprising.
That is not. But the main theme from Final Fantasy IX, Melodies of Life, is the main theme from Final Fantasy VIII, Eyes on Me, is the main theme from Final Fantasy X-2, Just Communication, Just Rhythm, I believe it. That one is, and a few others. But no, they have One Winged Angel is in there. The Advent Children version can suck a dick. I hate that because it's a rhythm game, you're having to concentrate, and it's a tougher song, and it is the full 8-minute song.
Jesus.
So that is a long amount of time to focus on a rhythm game. I mean, it's great hearing the song. There's 4 versions of One Winged Angel in the game.
Any Kingdom of Hearts music?
No. There is no Kingdom Hearts music. That is reserved for Melodies of Memory, which you can buy separately. There will be The World Ends With You music, though. They are putting calling
cool.
and stuff like that in. That's DLC. Really fun game. Highly recommend it if you like rhythm games. It will definitely be in my top 10 games of the year.
Nice.
I finished 2 manga series recently. A series called Crows, and then the sequel series called Worst. They're both delinquent manga series, so you follow a group of delinquents at a high school that's just an all-boys school for delinquent children.
Is that a genre,
And
delinquent manga?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Yu Yu Hakusho, that's a delinquent manga, right? Because I remember him being kind of an asshole.
Supernatural aspects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
See,
this
I know my
one's
shit.
more just this one's just more straight up you have the 3 or 4 different schools in the town, there are rivalries between them, how the leaders of each school kind of try and rein in their groups and stuff like that, but also know each other. And then you've got the random motorcycle gangs that are also there and stuff like that, how it mixes with the Yakuza of the town. So it's really interesting. I love the dynamics for that. A huge sucker for the Delinquent series. They were both by the same creator, and he did a few other series in the same universe, but not necessarily direct sequels. Really good mangas, though. Unfortunately, they're not available in the West, so you do have to read fan translations. That is the only way to read them. Beyond that, I have been just kind of catching up with anime for Ronin Council, but you'll be hearing about that on Ronin Council.
Sam, he plugs Ronin Console. Did he plug Reasons I'm Broke on Ronin?
I know I did. I think we all did quite a bit.
Yeah, I know you did. I Scott didn't, but that's my favorite trait. Like that's now it's like a little ongoing joke.
Yeah, I know I finally got is I'm trying to collect with TCG booster packs, like sealed booster packs. So I was finally able to collect one that was like one of the harder ones to get.
Which one
And
was
that
it?
was a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh! Legend of Blue Eyes, which was the first set ever released for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the
Oh,
West.
okay.
Cool stuff. Randomly had it for
Yeah.
$13 for a booster pack, and I'm like, done.
Wow.
Although it cost me $20 with shipping because it was $8 shipping, $13 booster pack. It's unlimited edition, so it is the kind of bulk one after the first edition. But I'm okay with that since the first edition pack's like $300. So now if I could find base set like, for Pokemon, I'd be set. But that's ridiculously priced. I only picked up Legend of Blue Eyes because it was $20 with shipping.
Do you know roughly how much a base set pack goes for, sealed?
Let's find out real quick.
And I bet the Charizard art card is going to be the most expensive.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. Is there's actual differences in or different arts versus Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just one art. Let's see. Charizard one looks like it's going for about $300.
Wow.
A Venusaur sold for $411.
Holy shit. That's the best one.
I mean,
too.
even Jungle's like $300.
It was amazing when we, at the comic shop, someone was moving out or cleaning out their attic. And you might remember this, Scott, but they brought in a bunch of sealed Fossil and Jungle packs. Because for whatever reason, they didn't open them ever. And they were like, yeah, they're apparently worth a little bit of money. So the shop owner, he bought them all up. And he's like, all right, Daniel, you're the Pokemon guy. Should we open them up and sell them as singles? And I'm like, I don't think so. Let me look them up real quick. And I looked up all the Jungle set and I looked up the Fossil set. I'm like, no cards in there are worth more than a sealed pack itself, which doesn't make sense. I know, but we should not open them. So he's like, okay. So we kept them sealed and we threw them in the glass case and people like drooled over them. And we had them marked up. People drooled over them and they were like, oh man. And everyone would like, oh man. And there was one Pokemon player that would every week he would trade in a ton of holos and GXs or EXs or whatever they were at the time and buy up a bunch of credits, save it up. And then he'd buy up packs and he like picked away at that. And every now and again we'd get a collector buy one and we went through them all eventually. But that was a big money maker for us because yeah, we flipped those singles and we made money. We sold the sealed booster packs. And it's just kind of like a once in a lifetime thing. I don't think that would have happened had I stayed at the comic shop ever again.
No, because even then, the booster packs weren't worth nearly what they're worth now.
Oh, I believe it. That was pre-COVID.
Like, yeah, because pre-COVID, I mean, a booster pack for that was what, probably $70, $80?
I think so, yeah.
Which is nothing compared to what I just looked at $300 for that booster pack. You got to figure pre-COVID prices were not the same thing. I still remember seeing an English booster box of Team Rocket at a convention sealed, and it was barely over. It was what we're charging now for a sealed booster box of normal sets. It was like $120, $130, and that was a sealed Team Rocket booster box.
Yeah, no, I don't even. I'm guessing like 900 at this point.
Easily, it's actually probably more in the thousands because pretty much every Pokemon booster box. I mean, hell, Evolutions is at like $600.
That's insane, man. We couldn't get rid of that fucking set.
I was gonna say when that set came out, we couldn't give those fucking things away.
I remember just paying, I think it was $100 for one at a convention, and now again, if I kept that sealed, that would be $700-800.
Well, I can see why you've moved on to because I've seen that progression. I think. Maybe you collected them in the past, but I've only heard of you collecting the booster pack art in the last year. So I can see how that's pretty appealing for a collector like you.
Yeah, I enjoy the booster pack arts. I've always collected them, but not the same way. I would just keep them after I opened them.
The wrappers,
like
right?
I have a few I have a few Pokemon 10s actually right now of like some of the older sets that it's just the wrapper, including like Gym Heroes.
Oh, nice.
Which another fun story. Pre-COVID, it was actually 2019, right before COVID at MegaCon. There was a dude who had bought a storage unit from an old game shop, and they had booster boxes of like Gym Heroes, Gym Challenge, all of that fun stuff. And I remember buying a pack for $10. He had like 10 left, so I'm like, oh, I'll take the Misty pack. $10. I asked if I could get the empty case once he was done with it, but that was going to whoever bought the last pack would just get the box.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like nowadays, that's unheard of to spend $10 on that pack. But that's what it was going for back then. But yeah, I still have the pack, but what I would do is I'd open it just with scissors and then keep the pack art. And that way I figured it as the best of both worlds because you still get the art and then the other. But now I'd like to try and keep them sealed. That's been a change in the last year. And then I actually want to get them graded just so that they'll be a little more protected.
Gotcha. Very nice, man. I like it. How about you, Sam? What have you been? I know you off the air, we were talking about how you've been doing a little bit of traveling.
Yeah. I did my first work trip since switching positions. I got to go to Philadelphia for about a week. Super fun, actually. I loved it. Funny story, actually, Danielle, pertaining to you. Jimmy was my supervisor on the trip.
Oh, cool.
And so we get there, and my dad's been to Philly a number of times, and he was telling me, like, when you get there, you got to eat at the marketplace they have there, which if you've ever been to like East End Market, it's essentially like that, but it's like a whole city block. So you go in, there's all these different food stalls and stuff. So that's where we all ate the first day. And, you know, I go in there, of course, all my coworkers are going straight for, but you know, the upside of traveling with Jimmy is he knew you, and he's known me for a while. So he goes, "Oh, I didn't forget. I know you're vegetarian. I already found the place for you to eat at." So he takes me to this vegan deli shop in the marketplace, and it was literally essentially like a vegan butcher shop is the best way I can describe it. It's all like meat-based sandwiches, but obviously it's like Beyond Meat and stuff, but their own like in-house brand made.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I luck out. I find a table, I sit down, and I had ordered a vegan Reuben, and everyone that got a Philly cheesesteak was upset that my food looked better than theirs. It was so good, too. But so one thing on the way there, I got to read The Last Ronin, finally. I'm super late to that party, but I finally got to read it.
And you finished it?
I finished the first volume, but really, really awesome. If anyone else is late to the party like I was and hasn't read it, if you're a Ninja Turtle fan, if you're just a indie comics fan, or just you like that like weird ninja stuff, if you're a Daredevil fan, definitely check it out. It's super good. Other than that, though, yeah, I did a lot of cool stuff while I was there. I bought a lot of artwork, which was one of the main draws for me. One of the Magic artists also had some Nier Automata artwork that he did, and I bought that. And then I got a playmat off of him. He does like warped version of Disney characters. I bought a Winnie the Pooh one. Yeah, super cool. But comics wise, I actually got my first comics graded.
Which one? Did you through Bobby, I'm guessing?
Yep. So Little Nightmares #1.
Gotcha. Little Nightmares? Is that
also Little Monsters, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Little Monsters.
I was going to say.
Dustin Nguyen and Jeff Lemire.
Yeah.
And then 7 to Eternity #1, which is another Image book, kind of like based in dystopia future, but it has like Norse mythology elements. And I had a variant cover for that actually spiked quite a bit recently. So I got really good grades on both of them. I am going to post them in Discord. I meant to yesterday. Yes. I just passed out immediately. But I was very happy with those. It was super exciting. I definitely want to keep getting stuff graded. But it's really happy that right off the rip, I got a Dustin Nguyen one with a good grade.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I know he got the CGC haul in recently, and I think I have a couple of comics in there too. So I'll be seeing him on Saturday, and yeah, I'll be sharing some on Discord as well in the Collector's Corner, some of those books. But it is really, really addicting, and as Scott can attest to.
Yeah, he's got my cards right now. Picking them up Sunday.
There you go.
Like I'm looking forward to sharing those in the Discord, but I'm hoping they got some good grades. Apparently one of them spiked in price recently, so
nice.
The Misty spiked in price.
Is it which Misty is it? The Starmie one or is it an older one?
Yeah, the Naked Starmie.
Oh, Naked Starmie one. Okay. I was thinking of the new one.
Misty's Tears Japanese.
Somebody was just talking about that card today.
Yep. That was one of the first things I bought when I got my very first paycheck.
That doesn't shock me.
Back then it was like
and
a
you would be
$10
pervy in some
card.
way.
Yeah. But now graded, they're going for like 200 and something.
That's pretty good.
If they got a good grade.
Now, Dan, remember, if you get Dustin Wynn to come on.
Yeah, I won't forget. I hope I won't forget. I know he's got Lemire was on Word Balloon recently, and he revealed that he and Dustin have a longer form series in the works right now, and they're still working that out. But when they do put that in previews, I think that's when I'll reach out to Dustin and say, hey man, let me cash in on that interview. I know you don't like doing podcasts, but let's try to push this book a little bit.
And you and I can collaborate too. We'll try and make it like fairly concise for him if he agrees to it, so it's not overwhelming or anything. I've already thought about, if you were to get him on there, what stuff I would want to ask him about.
Yeah, well, write that stuff down. Definitely don't forget it, because it'd be good to put that together. Artists are introverts, and I know, Scott, we've seen like Clay Mann can't sell for shit at a convention. So I'm sure it's pretty hard for someone like Dustin, especially, to come on and talk about himself and sell himself. It's pretty difficult for some artists to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Only thing I've got on my end is I've shared a little bit of it, but I'll expand on it, is Leo watching Joker, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. There's that moment where Tim Drake, I don't care if it's spoilers, the movie's old as hell. You should have seen it by now if you're an animated series
Over
fan.
20 years old.
Yeah. Older than some listeners right now. And it's there's that moment where Tim Drake, the HBO Max thankfully only has the original cut of it, which is Tim Drake killing the Joker. None of this slipping on shit and him accidentally killing himself.
Wait, did they add that type of stuff in on later cuts?
Yeah, so they stopped releasing the original cut of it, and they re-edited it so that the Joker slips and electrocutes himself. They got rid of the red paint and the ha-ha-has for Batman. They got rid of some of the suggestive moments with Dee Dee. They butchered the fucking movie. And then it wasn't until much later that they released the uncut edition, and that's the edition that they put on HBO Max. So when it got to that moment where Tim Drake is like laughing as a kid, and he's a Joker, and Kelly's like, oh, you might want to hold Leo for this moment. It's kind of intense. And I'm like, all right, so I did. But Leo didn't care. He's like, oh, why'd he shoot the Joker? Like, he was sad because he likes the Joker, and not because Tim Drake had to do this awful thing.
That's your kid, Daniel.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah. And he's like, oh, I'm a little sad because I like the Joker. And I'm like, okay, well, this was in the past. And it continues. And obviously you see by the end of the movie, the little chip gets destroyed and the Joker's defeated. And he's like, oh, no more Joker. And I'm like, no more Joker. He's like, oh, man. And so he didn't like that ending, that the Joker is gone. He's no more. And Batfake won. And I had to explain to him. He's like, why does he call him Batfake? And I'm like, well, the Joker there's only one Batman. And I agree with the Joker. And that's Bruce Wayne. And he's like, oh, okay. So he got it. He's like, I understand. And when he was like, the other moment I'll share is when Joker's like, the ears are too long and I missed the cape. Leo goes, where is Batman Beyond's cape? Why doesn't he have a cape? And I'm like, I agree, man. Capes are cool. Actually, Sam, you'll enjoy this. There's a Dustin Wynn panel that he worked on, and I forget which series it was. It's the Batman Beyond New 52 series. There's a prototype version of the Batman Beyond suit that Bruce makes that has the cape. So it's Batman Beyond with the cape, and it was just an excuse for the artist, Dustin Wynn, to draw up Batman Beyond with a cape. And it looks fucking cool. Like, it works. They should have kept the fucking cape on Batman Beyond.
Oh, I totally agree. Which series was that? Do you remember? Because I picked up quite a few of those. Was it the Hush Beyond one?
It was either Hush Beyond or Batman Beyond Unlimited. It was whichever one Dustin worked on, and I know he worked on several of them.
Yeah,
but it was cool. Just the new suit gets
I remember watching
broken or whatever.
Yeah, I remember even as a kid being like, they could have just put the cape on.
Yeah, it's really cool in the comic. Drapes over him and everything. Like, just leave the cape.
Yeah. Oh, Daniel, I did remember. I watched Batman Superman Rise of the Super Sons. Leo might like that. The voice acting's really good. It's Travis Willingham and Laura Bailey as Superman and Lois, and then Troy Baker as Batman. But it's got Damian, so
Yeah, we actually sat down and watched it, and Leo did like it, although some parts were intense for him, like when the Starros are coming out of their mouths and when they're like
oh yeah, I
jittering their
forgot
bodies
about
and
that.
shit.
Yeah, that part
Yeah,
is
they went,
actually
like,
pretty
full
freaky.
alien.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did like it.
Did you
though.
enjoy it?
I thought it was all right. Like I wish they had just just do the fucking
Yeah,
comics. They're there. But yeah,
Yeah,
they did
I
their own
agree.
original story, so whatever. But I won't be watching it again personally, but they could have done way worse, especially with the recent animated stuff. Like I watched that Green Lantern with Jon Stewart movie, and it's fucking terrible. So
I was
there's been
gonna
some
ask if you
stinkers.
got around to watching it because I remember you were thinking about it, and then I was like, I don't know if I'm in for that, and now I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, avoid that one, man.
Yeah.
But there you have it, everyone. It's the Brocat Block and your news for this week. Scott and Sam, I want to thank you both once again for helping and hosting this week. Please let them know where they can find you and what projects you've got coming up. We'll start off with Scott.
So you can find me every Wednesday on Lazy Gaming Guys on YouTube. Lazy Gaming Guys, all one word. And then you can also find me at Lazy Gaming Guys on Twitter. You can find the links to the Discord, both of those locations. I'm like on that Discord a lot, so you can check that out. You can also find me on the Discord for Reasons I'm Broke or the Exiles Network or plenty of other Discords. That's where you can find me. You'll also hear me on the Ronin Council podcast. That's a fun project. If you haven't checked that out, check that one out. It's on SoundCloud, I believe, the Exiles Network / Ronin podcast or Ronin Council. I don't fully have that one memorized yet. So, but yeah, check that one out. It's really cool. We talk about anime and weeb shit.
And you've got the Super Weeb on. Sam, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me here on Discord as well, if you're on this channel, it's Kanashi Lord. If you want to add me on Discord and then I'm also on Ronin Council with Scott and Millennial Mike. You can find those episodes on pretty much every podcast network. I've been going through them on Spotify, so I know that's what a lot of people listen to stuff on. You could just search up the Exiles Network or Ronin Council and it should come up for you. Other than that, you can just find me on Instagram, Samuel Boylston, and let me know what you're reading or watching. And if you're looking for recommendations, we're always happy to help you out. And then obviously find me here. You know, my favorite way to spend an evening usually, bullshitting with Daniel about comic books. So Daniel will probably say it, but let us know what you guys are reading.
Absolutely. And you can find links to everywhere you can find Scott and Sam in the description of today's episode, including our Discord lounge. And this week, we did a lot of Pokemon TCG talk. If you would like to get your cards graded, especially if you're in the UK area, head on over to treefroggrading.com and be sure to use the coupon code BROKE to get 5% off your entire order. So they're a solid grading company, especially out in the UK. They're very specific they use computer scanning to make sure like how centered the card is. So their quality of grading is really high up there. So that's once again, treefroggrading.com. Use the discount code BROKE. Otherwise, I've been Daniel, joined by Scott and Sam. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. And Brocat Core, all will be well. For each of you, this is almost Smash Brothers type, but for Mortal Kombat 12, what wacky offbeat character could they announce that you would want to see? And nothing's off the table because we've seen crazy shit like Rambo, the Terminator, Alien, Predator. Who would you want to see that hasn't been included yet?
We were talking about Schwarzenegger earlier. I want to see Last Action Hero Schwarzenegger.
Boom. Not Commando?
No. I want to see the over-the-top, like, Last Action Hero one. Just because it's just so funny like the whole fact of like he'd just brush off damage or something like that, or like just blow a hole in him and be like, "Oh, shut up, you're fine." You know, like things of that nature. I think would just be great. I think it'd be fun. It'd be off the wall. No one would see it coming, like that announcement at all.
A Turbo Man skin.
Oh my god, that'd be so good.
I would love it. Just put on Schwarzenegger in it and then have like all of the different fighting styles are just his different movies.
There you go.
Like the easy joke is Shaggy, right? Because you keep hearing about the Ultra Instinct Shaggy. I do think that would be hilarious. I also think a Power Ranger would be really funny. Saban would never let it happen, but I think it would be hilarious.
For me, I'm going to go with a horror icon and go with Reagan from The Exorcist.
Oh my god, yes.
One of the moves is her
That'd be
going
an
backwards,
interesting
the stairwell or whatever, the backwards crawl,
Just
like that could hurt you.
projectile
and shit.
vomiting
Yeah,
at the enemy.
levitating, like, oh man, that you can do all kinds of shit with her.
The head spin.
Like she just headbutts you while doing the head spin or something like that.
Daniel,
Do
this is
damage.
actually gold. You should email Warner Brothers. That actually, never mind. They don't like good ideas.
No, they hate money.
No, but Ed Boon might.
That's true. He's not been corrupted yet.
Yeah, that's true. Ed Boon will actually probably be like, all right, listen up, report in. Just ignore every Warner Brothers executive on the way in.
Yeah, Ed Boon is a treasure. He was promoting the Snyder Cut when the Mortal Kombat film, the live action one, came out. Like he was not promoting that new movie. I guess there was some tension between the studio and him in that film. So he was getting a lot of shit by the studio apparently because he would not plug the film. Instead, he was like, watch the Snyder Cut.
He's always seemed like a really cool guy. I used to follow him on like every social media. He just actually seems like a fan that got to make his own thing, you know?
Yeah.